We're going to do a quick SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the language industry caused by all these GPT things, GPT models, LLMs, ChatGPT, all of this. And hi, everyone, and welcome to SlaterPod. Hi, Esther.
Hey, Florian.
Fresh off a successful SlaterCon remote conference yesterday, Wednesday. And so now we're in fact announcing our very first in-person conference since 2019. Yay.
I was expecting a drum roll or something, but you didn't do a drum roll.
We can do a drum roll.
Too late, you've announced the news now.
We can do a post-announcement drum roll. So SlaterCon, October 4th in the beautiful city of Zurich. Just to make things easy, we chose Zurich. Might as well, in the middle of Europe. Hopefully the weather's still going to be fine in the early stages of October, but should be okay. And ticket sales will open soon. So do save the date, October 4th. Really excited to meet people in person again. It's been only like half a decade. Who would have thought? On the docket today, RWLS's results, M&A and funding, bunch of stuff happening there, both in kind of the core localization space and the broader LLM space, which it's always hard for us to decide what are these things we need to cover and which ones we shouldn't cover, because, we can't cover all of these AI fundings because some of them are not really related to localization, translation, AI dubbing, etc. But some of them are relevant to us. And then we're going to unpack a bit like we're going to do a quick SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the language industry caused by all these GPT things, GPT models, LLMs, ChatGPT, all of this. And we're going to spin up a slide. So if you're on YouTube, if you're not on YouTube, you should go on YouTube towards the end of the podcast. But first, a couple of interesting takeaways from SlaterCon Remote yesterday. One that I found really interesting was the Neural Garage blank co-presentation on lip sync AI dubbing. So, basically they're working very hard on making the kind of using AI to adjust the lip movements when you do AI dubbing, because obviously that makes a huge impact on kind of the naturalness of it. Because if the lips, this is always it's always the big challenge in dubbing, right? I mean, the lips don't move in the way that the language does. So, it's obviously for the kind of, I guess right now, the lower end of the market, maybe educational side of things. And because I guess some of the big Hollywood star actors wouldn't want their, lip movements changed. Maybe, future generations might not care, but I guess the current generation might care. But it works really well. Neural Garage did a demo in Arabic, Hindi, German, French, everything, and it looked great. And they also responded to a question about how they actually process the different languages, and they said, interestingly, it doesn't really matter what language it is for the lip movement. They're breaking it down to a frame level and a kind of particular sound level. So it's kind of hard for me to explain, but it's broken down to such a short sequence that from a technology point of view, it doesn't really matter if you speak Hindi, French, Arabic, or, Inuktitut. It doesn't matter. It breaks it down so granularly that the technology, again, breaks it down into frames and individual kind of sounds levels. So hope I didn't butcher this, but that was interesting. Also, as a contrast to last week's pod with Unilingo, with Farbod really speaking about the advantages of doing kind of very professional voiceover, professional dub content with human voice actors, professional human voice actors, which he said have a much higher retention rate on YouTube than, the AI dub content. So I think he said that the professionally dubbed content would have the same retention rate as a kind of an original language YouTube video, and then with AI dubbing, it would fall down. would go down. So yeah, very, very interesting. You had the AI side of things, and then last week on the pod, we had the human kind of professional dub side of things. Also, I liked FIFA and DeepL. The FIFA and DeepL presentation was quite interesting that they, DeepL's basically been chosen through an RFP at FIFA, and they're using it internally for kind of internal documents and FYI things. And then, but on the TMS side, I don't think they've fully integrated DeepL yet, which is interesting because FIFA is doing a ton of translations. Of course, also they're inventing new words. For example, VAR. How do you say VAR in English? Virtual assistant referee. The VAR, is it called the VAR? Okay. Yeah. VAR. It's a big thing in football.
Yeah, they go like this, don't they? Like the... Well, maybe that's rugby.
No, they actually do. They do the, if you're on YouTube, like we're gesturing with the hands. If you're on the audio rather. So basically, what's the point? They have to invent new terms as the kind of the rules and regulations of football, soccer expand or change, and then they have to roll it out globally because those are the binding rules and regulations for football. And of course, if you're inventing new terms, you got to also then invent the translations for that into all of the different languages that FIFA operates in. All right. Anyway, it's going to be uploaded and available to subscribers on the website, the recording that is, of the presentations at SlaterCon Remote. Let's see if we're actually going to record and upload the ones that we're going to do in Zurich on the live conference. It's a little harder, a little more equipment than just recording a screen. Now, one company we hope to have at the SlaterCon Zurich conference is going to be RWS. How are things over there, Esther?
Yeah, well, so they released their first half results for 2023 a few days ago, maybe a week or so ago now. This is the period, September to March is their reporting period. They'd already released some numbers in an earlier trading update, so numbers were pretty much in line. You had, on a revenue level, 366-ish British pounds, millions. Which is around $460 million. That's for the 6-month period. And then in EBITDA, it's around £54 million. That was adjusted pre-tax profit. I should be more specific. Around sort of $68 million. But I mean, beyond the figures, we kind of looked at a few of the things that they were highlighting more operationally and kind of on various different topics. So they said, pulled out sort of e-learning and linguistic validation as kind of key areas of focus going forward, or continued areas of focus. And they also said that they launched their AI services proposition called Train AI in the first half. But what I thought was quite interesting as part of the announcement around Train AI, and then kind of a wider discussion around AI and LLMs, there were some comments from their CEO, Ian L. Mokadem. He was saying, obviously, Train AI is just one of RWS's AI-centered products and services. This is a quote. And we're already well-established developers, providers, and users of AI technology.
So Train AI is kind of like an Appen competitor, or?
I think so. I think it's the AI services sort of side of the business. I mean, they're calling it like a product and a service. So I guess there's some kind of platform component of it, but more broadly, it's the AI data services.
Interesting. Appen's getting whiplashed on the market, by the way. Like they kind of like went up from the lows in end of May. That's not too long ago. Kind of nearly doubled. They're like up like 80-90%. And then since June 2nd, it's down like basically cut in half.
Oh, in like 2 weeks or something.
It's just going up and down. Because I thought maybe the markets are now understanding that, well, you kind of need Appen for all this new LLM world. And so we went up, and now it's going down again. So anyway, That's the fickle market. So back to RWS. We said Train AI.
So they launched Train AI.
Did they say anything about LLMs and market impact?
They did. Yeah, well, they were talking about large language models. So this is Ian L. Mokadem again saying that they represent an exciting development as far as content generation is concerned, and also have a clear role to play in the localization market. And in his case, he said in enhancing existing products like Language Weaver, which is the MT over at RWS, and Trados. And then obviously you're praising LLMs, but you're also saying that he says he doesn't believe that they're a replacement for dedicated localization products and services with enterprise-grade security, privacy, and domain expertise, which are developed and improved using none other than high-quality data. So we're back to the data side again.
Yeah. And I think also they mentioned that Language Weaver closed a couple of, or maybe a few more new contracts, and that they're like now servicing like 5 out of 10 or something like that. I don't recall the exact figure of the top law firms. So quite enterprise grade that offering. Language Weaver, the MT offering there of RWS. Another one was this unitary patent, which we have tried to unpack for about 700,000 years because it's very complicated. But apparently it's now coming to force in the second half of 2023. I think it was on June 1st.
Yeah, it was entered into law or whatever they call it.
So let's not even try to unpack it. Long story short, it used to be complicated to file a patent. This makes it easier in Europe. Easier also meaning less translation. One of the key sentences or statements that was on the European Union's website kind of selling the unitary patent as a good thing was that it, quote unquote, drastically limits expensive translation. Now, that's not good for anybody offering that expensive translation, among them RWS.
Well, expensive is subjective, right?
Yeah, sure. But now that was the most anticipated development ever. So they've been talking about this. RWS has for the past 7-8 years. Arguably, it was one of the triggers that made them think about acquisitions in the first place, and so they leveraged some of the profitability that they got from those kind of patent translations into buying companies that are totally unrelated to patent translation. And well, here we are. It's the second largest LSP in the world. From a more kind of boutique niche patent translation company 10 years ago. Now it's in force, and counterintuitively though, you looked at this. There's something that's really weird, that now that it's in force, it actually helped they're projecting a better performance in their IP services.
Exactly. I mean, they're saying that in the second half, they think that the impact of the unitary patent is going to accelerate organic growth.
How is that?
Well, yeah, I mean that's sort of the how and why. So, I mean, what he actually said was that the introduction of the unitary patent is expected to trigger the release of a backlog of deferred patents to grant. So I guess maybe people have been holding off or whatever. For some reason, there's a bit of a backlog of patents not being granted. And the unitary patent will then trigger this release of the backlog, so which seemingly would be good for RWS, although not specifically translation, I suppose, because obviously they got wider IP services, don't they?
Yeah, and also as far as I remember, and I might be wrong, but as far as I remember, you don't have to use the unitary patent. I think you're still allowed to file under the previous system. So maybe people were waiting to see what's going to happen if it's going to be introduced. And now that it's introduced, they're just going to go forward with maybe the traditional system for some of the backlog, but then slowly transition over to the unitary patent. We looked at this a couple of times. It's just complicated. Unless you're in that niche, maybe not worth totally understanding every single nook and cranny of patent translation and IP services. M&A. What's going on there at RWS?
This is another comment from the CEO. They said on the topic of M&A, we're encouraged to see a much more exciting pipeline in the last 6 months, which provides us with attractive opportunities to deploy our cash. And we are at an advanced stage with a number of bolt-on opportunities.
Now, what does that mean in clear speak? That means more companies are up for sale at potentially good valuations. And if you have cash, you can buy them. Now is a good time to buy. So we've turned from maybe a seller's market back in 2021 to a bit more of a buyer's market now in 2023.
And also bolt-on would suggesting like on the small side that they're looking at rather than this kind of, giant, you wouldn't describe the giant, another SDL rather, more the bolt-on, like the kind of smaller ones.
Smaller ones. All right. And then there's a couple more things in your M&A corner there.
There are, yes, thank you. Another smallish in terms of, I suppose, being a startup and being tech. Unbabel did its second acquisition of 2023 when they acquired Babblik, which is a website localization technology platform. This was a few weeks ago in early June. Babblik is based in Israel, founded 2014. It's a SaaS offering. So it's got three different tiers of SaaS offering for web translation, and also offers a range of integrations like with Shopify, WordPress, as well as different APIs. So Unbabel has acquired them. Unbabel, I mean, most people know, it's sort of started out as this high volume customer service translation focused company founded 10 years ago. As sort of a tech forward AI type agency, and they've raised significant amount of money, 90 million to date. More recently, so in the past 2 to 3 years, acquired Lingo24, which is a LSP, and also even more recently EVS in Germany, just in December 2022. So now they've acquired Babblik, which, unlike these two previous acquisitions, is a pure technology provider that provides complementary technology. It opens up these new delivery channels for website and marketing content. And yeah, we heard from their chief product officer, Alex Cobb, who said,
from Unbabel's.
Yes, Unbabel's, yes. Yeah. Who said the expansion will enhance Unbabel's existing marketing solution that supports the buyer journey from awareness to acquisition. So they're talking about, localizing web pages, press releases, emails, kind of a broader range of materials.
Have more channels to funnel all that content into the Unbabel AI.
Yeah, which is the API and obviously the integrations and all of that.
Another company, very, very brief. We don't have to talk too much about it, but our friends at Synthesia, which always, trips me up as a German speaker, just pronouncing that word with the TH there. They raised $90 million at $1 billion valuation. So, they can call themselves a unicorn now, which is kind of rare in 2023.
It's pretty rare in the UK as well. Something like 50 or so unicorns based in the UK. I discovered.
I mean, the funny thing is, it used to be like the term unicorn is because unicorns are like super rare, and like you see 1 or 2. Now it's like, oh, it's like 50. It's like a herd of
There's
unicorns.
There's just 4 dozen unicorns
roaming the pastures in Kent are 50 unicorns. No, all right. So we had their CEO on the podcast. Go back, check it. I'm still a fascinated user and subscriber of Synthesia. It's just such a interesting product. It's these avatars, multilingual avatars.
120 languages apparently now, they've said.
120 languages. Oh my God. All right.
And lots of different accents and all sorts.
I have to check back if it now speaks like proper Swiss German. It struggled a bit. It was a bit confused. It was like a German who's lived here for 3 or 4 years and that's like trying to speak Swiss German. But anyway, that's the frontier.
LSP should definitely go and check it out. I mean, so their CEO told us corporate customers can now share and directly collaborate on their videos with third-party translation agencies inside the Synthesia platform.
Oh, really?
Yes.
He teased that.
Yes. So, I mean, I haven't checked it out. He kind of mailed this to me about 10 minutes before the pod. So, but yeah, we should have a look and see exactly how that's set up inside the platform. But yeah. Interesting one for LSPs.
That's a big one. Because he was teasing this feature in the podcast, which is already like 18 months ago. Yeah, so basically, well, for the LSP, that means you want to be connected to that and you want to be the option, right? And if you become the default option, obviously it's a huge channel for potential volume for you.
Another channel.
It's got the web, it's got the Synthesia platform. Funded by no other than NVIDIA. Partially, one of the lead investors there is NVIDIA, the company that's now worth $1 trillion.
I don't think they're the lead. I think the VC firm Accel is the lead, and NVIDIA is also a new investor.
Well, they're an investor. So NVIDIA, the big chip manufacturer, leading $1 trillion valuation because, everybody needs GPU capacity to process just to process one of these videos, I don't know, there's some data center like heating up the moment you hit process on Synthesia. Usually takes for maybe a 5-minute video, it takes about 5 minutes to process. So there's a lot of compute going on in the background. And so, yeah, you want to, NVIDIA has an interest in as many companies as possible, using as much GPU as possible, using their chips in their data, in certain data centers, becoming successful. Another company that got funded by NVIDIA and some other investors is Cohere. Remember Nick Frost on the pod? Also, we catch these people early before they raise, lots of money.
Hundreds of millions, yeah.
Hundreds of millions. So they raised to Cohere, basically an OpenAI competitor. It's very similar thing, enterprise use cases for all kinds of large language models. They raised $270 million. Series C valuation is $2+ billion. Cohere is based in Toronto. Their president and COO, Martin Cohn, used to be with YouTube. So he said that they've now raised $445 million. It takes a lot of money to catch up to OpenAI or remain competitive, because OpenAI, of course, raised, I don't know, apparently $10 billion from Microsoft, or Microsoft poured $10 billion into it. And let's leave it at that. It's just such a interesting, fast-moving, overfunded world at this time. And, there's going to be a lot of applications and services that are going to be built that are only going to be possible because all of these people invest so much money in this, that are relevant for the language industry, right? Now, let's do a quick analysis here of what all these LLMs, all these capabilities may mean for the language industry, specifically for LSPs, TMS providers, machine translation providers, and linguists. So for those on audio, I'm going to spin up a slide. So let me try to share my screen here. All right, so here we are. And this was presented this yesterday at SlaterCon. So I'd like you to push back maybe a little bit, or tell me where you agree, right? So why don't we go through the strength first and go like weakness, opportunity, and risk. So language service providers, a strength, I think they can implement all of these LLM-based services for lock buyers. TMSs, they're ideally positioned to help users leverage all of these LLMs in kind of reality, because they can, featureize them in a sense, shorten text, make it longer, implement some specific terminology. The machine translation providers, of course, they understand the LLMs very well, and the expert linguists generally are, of course, very highly creative and resourceful, and can continue to deploy that and beat the AI. I'm not sure what's your take here. Anything that you think I got wrong, or any additions to this?
On the expert linguist, I would, strongly agree. Being highly creative and resourceful is definitely sort of valid skills, and will help to enhance as well content coming out of these LLMs.
It's the edge.
Yes. Then on the LSPs and TMSs, yes, I think both of those are true in terms of, LSPs being able to implement, in theory, LLM-based services for the buyers, and TMS providers, in theory, being ideally positioned to help users leverage LLMs. I don't know if both of those things can be true at the same time. I think in reality there might be a bit of a jostle for who is the one, or who are the ones to be able to, inform and then deploy some of the capabilities, or for the client, on behalf of the client, the capabilities of LLMs.
I agree. I think there's going to be a pretty big fight here. And I think it's not happening aggressively just yet. And, we got to be, we want to be a little bit ahead of the curve, but we don't be too far ahead of the curve. I think right now, a lot of people are trying to understand, a lot of LSPs are trying to understand, well, what can I do with this, right? I suggest as an LSP, you want to be very much aggressively in the face of your clients, trying to understand how you can leverage this for them. But at the same time, the clients also have the TMSs that are slowly rolling out these features, right? So potentially the TMSs will complement the LSPs, but there is a bit of a competitive dynamic going on. But that's been something that's been going on for a while now.
Many LSPs are themselves users slash buyers of TMSs and might be looking to TMSs to to provide them with access to the LLM capabilities. So I think both, obviously it's a complex world. I think both of those things can be true.
But if you're an LSP and you own a TMS, that's a good place to be right now. That's a good place to be. If you own your own TMS and you have some development capability, like some development capacity, you're not just you have a couple of developers, but you have like maybe, 10, 20, 30, and you can actually integrate some of these things. That's a good place to be right now. Weakness, LSPs, we say lack product building expertise, TMSs, kind of sector constraints, feature overkill, MT providers. MT is a feature of an LLM, and expert linguists, they kind of lack the skill and the network to, more strategically benefit from this. But let's go back to the LSPs. One of the weaknesses is that they typically lack the product building expertise. So they always rely, unless you own your TMS, you always rely on somebody else to build a product or a technology that then you can use to offer as a service to your client. So you're kind of at somebody else's mercy, even more now than it used to be. TMSs, that was a bit hard to actually think what could be a weakness here. I think just generally like being all things to all people.
Yeah, like knowing what's actually useful, I think, when you're talking about feature overkill, what do people actually want to see? And in terms of the sector constraints, what people want to see or be able to do with a TMS may well differ across sectors.
It may very well differ. So yeah. And then you end up with, you already have feature overkill in some of these TMSs. Now you're adding more, and then you end up with 1,000 features that only very few people will use.
UI challenge as well, isn't it? Like where does this go? How do I display it? What's useful? What do they want to see?
TMSs generally are a UI challenge. It's very hard. It's very hard to have a clean UI. We're finding this out with our very own small website. Now, for MT providers, it's a little tougher because, machine translation is a feature of an LLM. So if you're just a raw machine translation provider, which of course very few are, but this is going very much into the core of your value proposition. So we'll talk about, the opportunity there, but this is definitely a weakness. And the expert linguist, that was also a bit hard, but again, scale and network, you're always kind of attached to somebody else's solution or service. And so, yeah, it's a little harder there. Opportunity for the LSPs, again, it's kind of going back to the strength. I really think they should become the key kind of managed service partner to lock buyers who are busy doing other things and don't want to spend the time understanding what these LLMs can bring to them. TMS as an opportunity that can become kind of the middleware between LLM and enterprise. Machine translation, they need to. It's an opportunity, but it's also a necessity. They need to become the specialized layer on top of these more generalist LLMs for machine translation. And potentially they can branch out into other things outside of raw machine translation. And then expert linguists, this one's pretty clear though. I think if you're an expert linguist and you really are taking to these things and you understand how to prompt well and kind of interact with the LLM or whatever featureized version of it you're seeing in your TMSs and CAT tools, I think that's a pretty good opportunity for you. Not sure if you have anything to add here.
Maybe this is kind of included in your analysis, but I think customization of LLMs, when it comes to specific clients and being able to make the LLMs more relevant for client use cases.
Yeah, train it like Slater Answers, right? Train it on somebody's particular use case.
Maybe that's the kind of key managed service bit that you're ascribing to LSPs. Could be MT, those would be the two most obvious.
We really have to check back in a year from now. A year is, it's quick. Check back in a year. What really? I'm so curious how this is going to shake out. Risks, LSPs. One of the key risks to me is that buyers are so much they have been kicked back into this exploration mode again. Like they're looking at, okay, so now my CEO is aware of AI. and language AI and large language models. And maybe they're like asking, hey, what do we do? Like, okay, why are we spending $2 million on language translation services? So they're now kind of pushed into this exploration mode, looking for new solutions. So that's why I would recommend LSPs be very close to clients. For TMSs, I think, again, like there's this competitive dynamic with the LSPs, and then the just all these, like, you know, I guess by now hundreds of startups trying to eat into their core market. So for machine translation providers, I think the key risk is just losing the quality edge. If there's something that's getting very close to their to their quality level, just as kind of the default out of the box option, that's a problem if you're an MT provider, right? And then for the expert linguists, I think that really kind of high volume content, the vanilla content, that non-critical content that used to be translated using, you know, expert in the loop translators or just human in the loop translators is probably disappearing relatively quickly and being automated. That's been going on for years, of course, but I think LLMs are just going to turbocharge this.
I think my only comment would be about the buyers in exploration mode. Yeah, I think it's definitely a risk, but it's also an opportunity. And I think the kind of awareness of increasing awareness of buyers around LLMs can also have a knock-on impact in terms of MT. So thinking, well, do we use LLMs? Do we use MT? You know, I think there is like an opportunity there as well as a risk. You know, depending on which way it goes, you could have a buyer who starts to look at this and think, gosh, you know, I'm not in any way going to be able to implement any of this in the right way myself internally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shakeup. It's like, again, you know, we've kind of gotten somewhat comfortable with NMT over the years, you know, since 2017, 2016, and now, oops, there's another shakeup coming. So yeah, you got to be very much on your feet and make sure that, again, these buyers who are in exploration mode explore their way to you as opposed to away from you.
Exactly.
May you live in interesting times. So look, we're gonna revisit this from time to time and see how it's gonna shake out in reality. Like, there's so much going on the TMS side. We also had a slide at SlaterCon Remote about like all of these things that, you know, the smart links, the smart cats, the phrases, the XTMs, memo queues of this world are doing, and all of them are doing something. They're all launching some type of features, changing, tweaking, etc. here and there. There's just so much going on. Great. So look, with that, let me stop the screen share and we head back to the regular programming, and then we are going to meet hopefully in Zurich on October 4th. So get your ticket when it opens for registration in a few days from now. We're basically fixing some last second registration challenges, but definitely save the date, October 4th, the city of Zurich. See you there.
Bye-bye.